Four-sided fantasy is a very interesting game. As soon as you start playing it, you become enthralled by its beautifully unique and innovative twist on the classic platforming genre. It's a game which immediately shows you its potential and invites you on a journey to fulfill these promises. However, this journey ends up being a lot more dull than anyone could have ever expected. My first encounter with four-sided fantasy was at the Mix during E3, an after-hours event which allows for indie developers to chat with journalists and content creators while showcasing their wares. I was immediately awestruck by four-sided fantasy and referred to the game as the next Braid for a couple of hours as the enthusiast team stayed. Unfortunately, playing four-sided fantasy now, I can see that in fact it did not manage to meet those admittedly lofty expectations. Four-sided fantasy, if you didn't know, allows the user to freeze the screen in place, connecting each side to each other. If you fall off the bottom of the screen, you'll fall back from the top. If you walk past the end of the screen on the left, you'll walk back in on the right. Using this mechanic to solve platforming puzzles is what creates the unique gameplay found in four-sided fantasy. It's a novel idea, and it's executed almost perfectly. It never felt like an added gimmick to me. What four-sided fantasy does exceptionally well, and I assume this is because it was built with this mechanic in mind, is feel overwhelmingly natural. This is even true in cases where you're left guessing at what to do, forcing you into a situation where you question whether the result of your actions fit within the parameters of the universe. Unfortunately, four-sided fantasy is cursed by the same mechanic in its progression. While it attempts to slowly teach you new ways to interact with the mechanic and progressively get harder and evolve, it ends up being stilted and breaks the flow that it achieves several times throughout a normal playthrough. Instead of the game becoming increasingly difficult, it's the players themselves who decide the game's pace because of the unique way in which you interact with the game. Everyone attempts to use four-sided fantasy's mechanic differently, and this is where its pace-breaking difficulty comes from. While some puzzles might make sense to you immediately, another may not, and others may never. The weird pacing in four-sided fantasy delivers with it an unexpectedly abrupt ending. At some point, the puzzles seemingly randomly stop, and the ending, the presumed message that was to be delivered to the player, begins. It's odd. It feels odd. What's even odder is the fact that four-sided fantasy feels as though it isn't missing much in terms of playtime. It lives its course and doesn't overstay its welcome, but as it leaves, it just forgets to wrap up before saying goodbye. A weird, out-of-place scene that leaves you with a sense that four-sided fantasy is attempting to demonstrate multi-dimensional interaction within the same universe without ever once hinting at such a thing throughout the duration of the mainline gameplay. Apart from its gameplay and graphics, everything in four-sided fantasy just feels nothing more than fine. The game continuously performs adequately in every aspect of its design, except in its main mechanic where it shines, but instead of bending its surroundings to complement the concept, the game simply lets itself explore a very dull and empty space. Don't get me wrong though, four-sided fantasy is a fine game, but settling for fine is exactly what four-sided fantasy's sole crime is. At the end of it all, four-sided fantasy is a good game with an interesting, unique mechanic and a step in the right direction for innovative approaches to a stale genre. It's a solid foundation for an expansion which could have been great, but as is, four-sided fantasy is only a step towards a complete look at this style of fourth wall-breaking puzzle platforming. Four-sided fantasy gets a final score of 7.0. Thank you so much for watching our four-sided fantasy review. My name is Himanshu Talwar, and you can find tons of reviews and content over at enthusiast.gg as well as PlayStation Enthusiast. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a like, and make sure you tell us what you think of four-sided fantasy in the comments section below.